Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining us for the sixth part in our Amazon Vendor Strategy series on gaining control in the never-ending battle against resellers. My name is Dina Podner, and I am the Marketing Manager here at Marketplace Strategy. Marketplace Strategy is a strategic marketplace sales acceleration agency servicing clients from startups to Fortune 50 companies. We manage more than $1 billion in Amazon revenue in a variety of categories, from grocery to personal care, home improvement, electronics, furniture, and many more. Our team includes strategists, designers, writers, and advertising specialists trained and focused exclusively on Amazon. Before we get started, I just wanted to go over a few housekeeping items. If for any reason you have to step away or miss a portion of the webinar, the entire session recording and slide deck will be sent out as a follow-up. If you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question box in your GoToWebinar control panel. I'll bring them up during the question and answer portion at the very end. Any unanswered questions during the live webcast will be answered in the next few days via direct email follow-up. Presenting today, we have Jeff Wolkoff, our VP of Sales and Marketing, and Sam Jennings, our lead strategist. To give you an idea of the agenda for today, we're going to try to keep it around 30 to 45 minutes to respect everyone's time. But we'll start off by briefly touching on why this is an issue and that brands are having in the first place. And then we'll go into the details on how third parties are able to do this and what damage is done to your brands if it's not controlled. And then we'll finish it off by going over how brands can minimize the effect on their brand. So to start us off, I'm going to hand us over to Jeff to get started.
Great. Thanks, Dina, so much. Happy to be here today. So let's begin with a very high-level recap on the third-party landscape and why it continues to be an issue for brands. Certainly, this is Amazon 101, but just want to do this for the sake of setting the baseline here. So as I'm guessing we all know here, Amazon has a third-party marketplace operated out of the Seller Central platform. It's a place where essentially anyone can sell anything. And while it likely wasn't initially intended to be this way, it's turned into a place where retailers and the general public can resell items often procured through wholesale methods, but the path by which third-party sellers obtain inventory can really be just about anything. It could be items bought on sale and resold, items bought at regular price and being sold for much higher than traditional price, items being bought from wholesale clubs like Costco, and certainly there's situations where items are stolen or procured by other less ethical methods. The way it's supposed to work is that any seller or vendor offering a particular product on Amazon should join that product's listing and add themselves to the list of providers offering that item. It's typically the vendor or seller offering the product for the lowest price who wins the buy box. In other words, when a consumer clicks the Add to Cart button on a product page, that particular vendor will be awarded the sale. Again, very much Amazon 101 here. But since around the beginning of 2017, it crossed the threshold where more than half of Amazon's units sold are now sold through its third-party marketplace. So the 3P marketplace is outselling, as far as units sold, Amazon retail. And in 2018, which is what this shows, nearly 20% of the more than 1.5 million sellers on Amazon did more than $1 million in business, which was nearly double what it was just a year earlier in 2017. Many of these organizations are honest businesses, with the best of intentions, just trying to make a living as a retailer in the 21st century. But, a strong percentage of them engage in activities that range, from straddling to leaping well past the line of Amazon's terms of service and, certainly integrity. For example, aside from earning sales by winning the buy box for years, sort of the baseline disruption method of 3Ps for a long time was creating duplicate listings to avoid having to compete for the buy box. That means literally creating an exact duplicate of an item already for sale on Amazon, so a seller can avoid battling for the buy box and compete with either no other resellers or very few. This is still a major issue for some vendors on Amazon, but it's definitely become less so over the past couple of years. More vendors have become vigilant about keeping their catalog cleaner, and Amazon has provided some additional levels of assistance in this area, including some services like brand registry. However, the rats always find their way to the cellar, and third parties have continued to evolve over time and find new ways to bend the rules and steal sales. So let's talk about some of those. Probably the most common practice undertaken by resellers to earn sales is well within the rules and simply involves creating quantities, pack sizes, or variety packs that aren't being offered by the vendor. So this is a particularly difficult thing for brands to combat because sellers, can usually much more easily repackage items into new quantities or variety packs, than a big manufacturer that's accustomed to shipping cases. And is certainly limited in terms of its infrastructural capabilities. Meanwhile, for many products, multi-packs and certainly variety packs are even preferred by the customer, if they can be offered in a cost-effective way. However, there are only so many pack sizes that can be offered. So what happens is these third-party sellers end up competing with each other for these buy boxes, which drives the price down and makes these multi-packs increasingly less profitable for them, and they typically have even lower margins than the vendor. So that causes an issue, and that has led to a slightly more recent trend of creating pack sizes that are somehow otherwise enhanced by adding another type of product or accessories for the product. By adding something like this, sellers can essentially create an infinite number of unique variations of a product and never have to compete for the buy box. So here we see a couple of examples. A seller offering a clip, a chip clip with the bag of chips. Then you have the sewing machine on the right here, which has dozens of third-party listings, all offering slightly different packages of the machine with different arrays of accessories. So this is particularly tricky because in this instance, short of creating every one of these pack sizes with different accessories, or creating one that's much more cost efficient, the brand can't remove these, and they likely don't want to variate them. So it's something that is going to make their catalog, messy at this point, really whatever they do. Another less common example of a trend in third-party mischief is taking a vendor product and offering a personalized or customized version of that product. You could certainly make the argument here that the seller is adding value and they're providing a service that isn't being provided by the vendor. But there are definitely examples of this. This one not really withstanding, when the need for personalization is kind of dubious, and it's very likely something that's only being offered so that the seller can list it as its own listing or variation. Now, those are some of the basic ways third parties earn sales by playing fair on Amazon. So let's talk about some of the more common ways we see third parties acting in bad faith on the platform and causing issues, ongoing issues for vendors, aside from the simple duplicate listing creation that we talked about earlier. So first and foremost, we see so many sellers messing with variation structure by adding duplicate variations. If you see the example of the insole product here, the seller has created a duplicate of the 12 to 13.5 size by adding a slash between the men's and women's size instead of the comma, which is the format for all the other sizes. Similarly, you can see a variation box here where we have a 200 count as well as a pack of 200 on the right. You can find examples of this everywhere. We see, where it's flavors, and one says French vanilla and the other says, vanilla comma French. Or for things with sizes, we'll see a variation that has an M for medium, and then there's another variation that actually says, the full term medium. So there's certainly a legitimate number of sellers that are doing this by accident, but obviously, it's one of the easiest ways to draw a sale away from a vendor, by creating this additional variation. However, here's another example that is certainly almost never a mistake. We see sellers creating variations described as premium packs or limited edition, where in fact the product is actually exactly the same. So not only is this damaging simply because it shows up as an additional variation, but it obviously comes with this implication that the product is somehow enhanced, which is certainly going to attract shoppers. especially in cases like the example here where the premium pack and the so-called regular pack are the same price. So what customer isn't going to choose the premium pack over the regular for the same cost? So here's another one we're seeing more lately that definitely straddles sort of the line of ethical practice. There are brands on Amazon now that, as a brand, sell variety packs of things. For this example, this is an enormously successful brand on Amazon. They sell all manner of mixes of snacks, chips, candy, granola bars, and so forth, combined into gift baskets, pantry supply boxes, care packages, and so forth. So when in reality they're just selling repackaged conglomeration of other people's products. There are tons of 3P sellers offering these types of products on Amazon, but in this instance, because they created a brand around it, they're able to get the additional benefit of some of the benefits that brands get that a reseller typically would not have. So as you can see here on the right, they actually have a brand store where they're able to showcase their full catalog of these packs. In theory, there's nothing wrong with this. Obviously, this is a legitimate business. Sample packs and care packages are great for offices or gifts. The issue that we have here is, if you can see on the left, is that they're offering a variety pack of a single brand. So essentially, there's no reason that this particular product should be allowed to be listed under their brand. What it should be is listed as a Kettle Chips product. So what this does is takes away Kettle Chips' ability to control the product, how it's displayed amongst other Kettle Chip products, how it's presented, content, and so forth. This should be absolutely considered a Kettle Chip product, and the ownership of the listing should go to them. More importantly, the subhead that links to the brand page, where here, if you click to the brand page from the product page here, it would link to this brand's product page, whereas this should certainly link to Kettle Brands chips brand page. So then there's what we just call mayhem, where sellers are associating products with other products just to take a ride on the sales velocity of the product and gain exposure that it could never get otherwise. So here's a great example of a third-party seller variating 1850 coffee with a Folgers product. Now, 1850 coffee is a Folgers product, but it's presented as an entirely different brand with different packaging, and it's clearly not a variation of the primary listing here. So again, what the seller is doing here is that because the 1850 product that it is offering was now going to get a lot more eyes than it would by being its own listing with no sales history. All right, so now that we've seen some of the newer ways that sellers are sort of scheming to increase visibility and sales, let's talk about some of the damage that can be done. So first and foremost is obviously sales. We do certainly do still hear the argument, not infrequently, that 3P sales are still more sales for the brand overall. Whether it's through Amazon Retail or through a 3P, it all ends up on the bottom line. But what it does do is create a black box as far as what's actually being sold on Amazon, versus through other channels. So, any company that's truly focused on analytics and understanding its growth markets is certainly not going to be satisfied with just this general lift in sales across the board. For some companies, this is not a big deal because it's, at the end of the day, it's a marginal increase in sales. But, for some companies, the sales can be significant. So, here's another example from Folgers. They sell various pack sizes of their K-Cups, but one that they don't sell is a 120 count, which is clearly an attractive pack size and an ideal cost for customers, because these two listings, according to third-party tools that we use, are each netting around $1 million in annual sales. So you're talking about $2 million in sales here that essentially Folgers could take better hold of by simply offering this pack size. Secondly, there's brand integrity. Obviously, we've all seen these listings with the images taken by people's cell phones and the product sitting on a table or a kitchen counter. It cheapens the product and makes it appear as if the product the consumer would get on Amazon would be somehow inferior or damaged. It's almost more of an eBay feel than an Amazon feel. Remember that this single page visit can affect a consumer's view of a brand on Amazon from there forward. They might say, oh, I can't buy this particular brand's products on Amazon because the ones there, I think they're secondhand. they don't necessarily understand how the 1P, 3P system works, and that not all of the inventory comes from a particular distributor. Copy and content is a whole other issue here. You obviously often have copy that is incomplete or often just plain incorrect. The last thing you want is a 3P, putting a product that, saying that it's gluten-free when it's not, and then a consumer may buy it believing it is. There's obviously nothing fact-checking what a 3P may put up here as far as content. So, we also frequently see images of old packaging or incorrect packaging. These are all things that obviously can have a detrimental effect on the brand. It's important to note that these listings can be cleaned up even if the vendor, in most cases, even if the vendor doesn't sell the particular product or pack size. That's a little bit of a misconception. There's nothing stopping you as the brand owner, if you can't remove this listing entirely by merging it, from at least making sure the product is represented in a way that isn't going to have a negative impact on your brand. You probably don't want to optimize this to be, beautiful and to the level of your listings, but at the very least, you might want to police this to make sure there's not incorrect information or bad images like this. It's important to remember that 80% of Amazon shoppers use the platform to discover new brands. So, you certainly don't want something like this to be someone's first exposure to your brand. Speaking of negative views of your brand, product integrity is another thing significantly compromised by allowing it to be sold in the marketplace. There are, certainly legitimate distributors on Amazon, but much of the time the inventory that the seller has is, taking a path that isn't entirely clear. Again, we're not entirely sure where they got it or where it's been. It could be damaged or expired, or simply just hasn't been stored properly. You can see several examples here of negative reviews that were left by consumers who were either sent expired, damaged, or in some cases just the wrong product. So again, Amazon shoppers don't necessarily understand the dynamics of the third-party marketplace. And the fault here can very easily be laid on the brand itself. Particularly in the case of when some sort of inferior product is delivered. The price example you see in the middle is a particularly interesting one. It's a fairly common occurrence for 3P sellers to sell something for much more than it would cost in a retail store. This is simply the seller trying to take advantage of a consumer who doesn't know or maybe just doesn't care what an item costs on Amazon versus a retailer. So a lot of consumers, just add things to their carts. They're shopping on Amazon. They like the convenience. They don't necessarily know what it costs in a store. And so to them, it may seem reasonable in the little comparison they have. They don't know or care if $15 is a lot for a 2-pack of peanut butter. And you'll often see listings that charge 2 to 3 times more than the retail price of a product. And a lot of times you'll see they have reviews, which means that clearly someone has likely been ripped off at some point. Again, actually, and this doesn't only go. I think it's important to mention this doesn't only go for grocery and CPG products. We frequently see products that cost well into triple figures being offered at much higher prices on Amazon. And these are just third parties that are hoping a naive consumer is going to purchase the product, not knowing what it costs, or just stumbling upon their listing. And they may even purchase the product at typical retail price, but they're offering at a price where they're going to get a huge payday. Obviously, the best solution here is to merge the listing and make the seller compete for the buy box. But in instances in which the brand doesn't sell the particular pack size or variation, it does become tougher. But you certainly want to make sure that you don't have instances where people are buying, spending way more for the product on Amazon than they would otherwise. Finally, a catalog with a lot of duplicates or variation issues creates a confusing experience for the customer. So, many times across categories, we've all done these searches on Amazon only to find a result page of a whole bunch of listings that, kind of seem to be the same, or at the very least are very difficult to discern from one or the other. This just provides an overwhelming experience for the consumer, and certainly increases the chance that they're going to abandon the sale because they simply don't know if they're purchasing the right product. It's an overwhelming amount of choice, or at least perceived choice. But people can clearly see that there's something going on here that isn't straightforward, and it often pushes them somewhere where they can find something a little bit of a cleaner catalog. So, while we all acknowledge that third-party sellers do a lot of things well, that are in terms and conditions of Amazon, and there's little we can do. There still are a lot of things that we can do to reduce their presence and impact. So let's talk about some of those. At the very forefront of that is simply to be vigilant and monitor and maintain. Successful brands need to continually be auditing their catalog, their full catalog, not only for duplicate listings, but for changes to variations in content. For some brands, these things happen once in a while, and for others, it's a daily game of whack-a-mole. So, yes, it's a tedious and time-consuming process, particularly for those with larger catalogs, but that's why there are partners out there, like Marketplace Strategy, who could conceivably help. So, here at MPS, we have a proprietary software called MPS Insights that we've developed internally. It allows us to scan Amazon and be alerted when something important within a brand's catalog changes. So this is something we set up for our clients when they begin work with us, and once we complete an initial cleanup of the catalog, MPS Insights will essentially alert us anytime a 3P comes in and creates a duplicate, or even if they change content. So this has been really helpful, obviously for our clients, but it's also been really helpful for our technical team, because it takes a process that otherwise was very manual, very tedious and time consuming, and makes it not only much more quick, but much more accurate and much less likely that we'll miss something. And while it often seems futile, the advantage of monitoring and keeping a catalog clean are very clear. Obviously, first is more transparency, measurability into sales going through the brand. With that comes increased velocity and stronger organic rankings due to the concentrated sales under the single listing. So this is vital as far as visibility on non-branded search. The virtuous cycle of Amazon is so important to its ecosystem, and in competitive categories, concentrating sales under a single listing is just absolutely vital. When things are split up across many listings, you end up being a bunch of small fish in a big pond, whereas in a big pond, you obviously need as big of a fish as you can get. Review aggregation is another huge piece of this. If you have 4 listings with 50 reviews each, combining those gives you a single, much more powerful listing that has 200 reviews. So something we see pretty often. And as we mentioned, consumers are learning about their products on Amazon. We've seen stats for every $1 spent on Amazon, roughly $8 are researched on Amazon and then spent off the channel. And that means that Amazon is making a huge impact on off Amazon brick and mortar sales. So providing a consumer friendly and brand aligned experience through both content and the tidiness of the catalog is very important as well. And in turn, keeping a clean catalog also stops third-party sellers from doing the same thing. That is gaining momentum and sales velocity to appear in search rankings. Forcing third-party sellers to stand on their own makes them unable to hitchhike on existing sales velocity. So without that, there's almost no way that a new third-party listing is going to be able to gain traction and become discoverable, other than if they hitch a ride on an existing listing that has some velocity behind it. We do often get the question, however, of whether a listing should be cleaned up, depending on circumstance. For example, if merging a duplicate listing may cause you to lose a buy box and the 3P listing doesn't have much velocity as a standalone, it's likely to leave it be so it doesn't become more discoverable and obviously take your sales. There are times when it may make sense to keep a seller variation attached to a vendor listing simply because it provides an advantage to the vendor product. In other words, let's say a brand sells a single pack of its product, but they don't sell a 2-pack. So a seller enters Amazon with a 2-pack, which is attractive to consumers. However, the seller listing 2-pack, let's say, is $20, whereas the vendor single is only $8. So therefore, a consumer can buy 2 1-packs for cheaper than the 2-pack from the seller, $16 versus $20. So for those situations, it could be best to leave them side by side in a single variation or in a single listing with variations, so that the consumer can see the lack of value in the 2-pack sold by the 3P. This is case by case, but in some cases it is better to leave that as a variation alongside the better value versus removing it and allowing it to live as its own listing, where a consumer may purchase it not realizing that 2-packs would be less expensive. The 2-pack would be 2 single packs, I should say, would be less expensive. There are also instances, unfortunately, where third-party listing may have significant momentum and sales velocity, and maybe a big reason that the listing as a whole is performing well in search. So if the brand's listing, the Amazon retail brand's listing is less powerful, uh, or perhaps it's new, the vendor listing is new, and it's a competitive category, it stands to gain, the vendor listing stands to gain by hitching itself to the more established seller listing, even if it's from a third party. So this is all strategic decisions that need to be made on a case by case basis. You really want to take everything into consideration, but there really isn't a single approach. Another slightly more simple path is using content to discourage the consumer from purchasing from a third party. So in this example, within a product image for a book, the publisher is noting to the consumer that the purchase of the book from a third party can't guarantee the digital components that come with the book purchase are going to be available. So you can see a similar example here on the right by Keurig. We've seen similar instances where brands have, stated that a warranty may not be honored if a product is purchased by a third-party seller. So that's another example of that. I mean, this also, in theory, could be a way to remove 3Ps from a listing entirely, to distinguish the product by including warranty or digital subscription or something else that otherwise wouldn't be available should the consumer purchase from a 3P. In those instances, the argument can be made, obviously, that it's not the same product without those additions, and therefore it's deserving of its own listing. So, if you're having buy box issues and 3Ps selling the product for less, it could potentially be a path to remove them. These are interesting and potentially effective ways to use content to combat the effort of third parties. The one drawback here is that it obviously necessitates that the consumer has a level of knowledge of the third-party landscape, and potentially that they know how to go beyond the buy box and choose a vendor, choose 1P over the 3P listing. Which I don't have the statistics to say, but I would say a lot of Amazon consumers would know how to do that. All right. Aside from being proactive and continually monitoring your catalog, whether it be manually or with a tool like NPS Insights, there are some other things brands can do to try to make a more long-lasting impact on the effect of third-party sellers. First and foremost, using brand registry to your advantage. It's definitely a better system than was in place a couple years ago. If you should encounter any significant issues with counterfeit items or sellers regularly supplying damaged or expired items, brand registry is typically the team to work with to get those sellers handled. Secondly, we have several clients who in a variety of ways are battling 3Ps outside of the platform. While Amazon certainly is not going to enforce your MAP policy, if you're clear on just who's breaking it, you can obviously pursue that from a business-to-business standpoint or legally. Meanwhile, you see this less, but you're fully within your rights as a brand to simply say that your distributors and retailers aren't authorized to sell products on Amazon. Although the channel conflict issues there are obvious and potentially significant. Again, you can pursue action through direct contact or through legal representation. This works for the resellers and distributors you know about and can find, but then what about the sellers whose identity is a mystery? In those cases, and there are certainly plenty of them, we frequently have had clients actually order a product to obtain more information about the seller, at which point they can actually reach out directly and pursue legal action or whatever action they choose to take. Perhaps the biggest lesson today, however, is that ultimately the best way to combat third parties is to adapt, to offer the types of products that are attracting consumers to them in the first place. The vast majority of companies offering consumer goods are still operating, pretty strongly with a brick and mortar mindset where they're really only equipped to package and ship cases. But in the same way that successful brands have come up with new SKUs and packaging for Costco and other club retailers, brands can make a significant impact by developing pack sizes and variations that fit both consumer preference as well as Amazon's profitability standards. So if a single pack of your product isn't profitable enough to sell on Amazon, if it craps out, and a case is simply more than most first-time buyers are willing to purchase, create a 2-pack or a pack or something that sort of meets in the middle. Even better, create a variety pack. People cannot resist a variety pack no matter what the product. The bigger picture initiative, this is all bigger picture initiative, obviously, but the clients that we have that have pursued these tactics have certainly seen them to be game changers. Two examples right here. Disclosure, these aren't clients, but two good examples here. Frito-Lay in many ways tripped into huge success on Amazon because they've been selling these lunch packs for years, and they just happen to be a perfect pack size for e-commerce. Not to mention it's also a variety pack. And this is why Frito-Lay now offers a lot of variations of these variety packs. They have a cheesy and a fiery and whatever else, and they all sell in droves. But if Frito-Lay were just trying to sell, the regular big, large bags of their chips, or just cases of the 36 single serving packs, they would have hit a much lower ceiling a long time ago. And we've seen this across clients. I can't have emphasized enough that in a category like grocery that has been so affected so heavily by the limitation to create new case packs, Frito-Lay's success on Amazon has had much less to do with its brand recognition than it has had to do with the fact that it's offering something that aligns very well with Amazon's model. The same goes for the tea brand here. Sampler packs are a staple of the tea category anyway, and they all absolutely kill it on Amazon. People love the opportunity to try a bunch of different flavors, and this basically creates a pack size that's also profitable for Amazon. It's a cost that's perfect for e-commerce. Of course, creating pack sizes and variations that haven't been created before for a lot of organizations can take a lot of cooperation from different levels of the company, operations, fulfillment, so much more. And as we tell our clients, we've hit a point where there is a need to adapt, even if it's not the easy thing to do, even if it takes time and effort to get it done. You need to be offering the product that is both profitable for your retailer and attractive to your consumer. And regardless of your company or your category, there are probably small brands who have minimal to no brick and mortar presence that are among the category's best sellers on Amazon. And this is because they, for one, they understand that Amazon's a marketing platform and that strategy trumps the relationship side of things that was more of a brick and mortar value. But two, they understand that it's important to offer products that are best for the channel rather than forcing legacy product into the channel just because it's the easier approach.
All right. Thank you so much, Jeff, for all of those tactics and insights on third-party resellers here. So we are going to move into the question and answer portion of this webinar. If you have any questions, please type them in the GoToWebinar control panel on the right side of your screen. But this is also just a reminder that the recording and slide deck will be sent out in a follow-up email, so make sure to keep an eye out after that. All right, so our first question we have today are, why should we care if there are duplicate listings? It's just more of our products being sold, right? Isn't it just like more retailers carrying our brands?
No, provided that we understand exactly what the duplicate listing is. So these are separate listings coming up in search. These are not just people competing for the buy box. So what this does is it does all the things that we kind of went through, where it creates a confusing search result page. These other listings potentially have bad content. They maybe have bad, you can't necessarily protect the inventory. Basically, most of everything in this webinar that we talked about is going to split things up. The other most important reason is because if you have a single product that's split over a bunch of duplicate listings, it basically splits all that sales velocity into separate listings. So again, when you're trying to appear high in non-branded search, what helps more than anything, more than content, is Amazon's sales velocity. And if you put those listings all together in one, it's going to create a stronger listing with more sales velocity that will be more powerful and appear higher in search.
All right, great. Thank you. Our next question is there a secret to getting change implemented quickly?
So there's no direct secrets with getting changes implemented quickly. Really, it's understanding kind of the core of the issues and understanding what different teams at Amazon from the support teams are quickest at getting those changes implemented, and then kind of understanding how to communicate with those people. So it's obviously a lot of repetition, a lot of working with different people, and understanding kind of the fastest way to get those changes implemented.
All right, great, thank you. The next question we have here is, in the case of the 120 count K-Cups, how is the 3P able to keep up with the demand of such a high pack count?
I mean, that's one of certainly the mysteries of 3P. The way that which these people procure this product is somewhat of a mystery. I don't know enough about that specific brand and their supply chain and anything else to know if that's something that would be easily procured. But obviously, it's something that a number of resellers are able to get, because there's several people that are selling that particular product. Sam, anything you would add on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of times what you'll see is that these sellers will do fulfilled by merchant, which is basically where they ship it from their own warehouse instead of shipping it from Amazon's warehouse. So they'll list all of these various pack sizes, whether it be 120 count or 160 count, whatever they think is going to meet Amazon's consumer preferences. And then they'll actually, as they get orders, put those orders together within their warehouse. So there's a lot of different strategies and tactics that they use to kind of test out different pack sizes and various, put-ups on Amazon.
Great. Okay, our next question is, you use a lot of examples of CPG brands. In your experience, are these types of products suffering more from third-party seller practices than other industries at present?
Yeah, not necessarily. Not necessarily. I would say that they're an easy example because they're products that are more widespread as far as their distribution, so more people are able to get them, more people are potentially able to get them at a low cost. I think the volume of reseller and CPG is certainly higher than in a lot of categories, say maybe electronics or something. But I mean, pretty much every category has resellers in different volumes, and pretty much across the board, they're all causing these types of issues. They're all causing these types of issues in one form or another. It does differ category by category, but there are, other than categories like luxury, beauty, where they're literally gated and no one else can sell them, 3Ps are pretty much an issue no matter what.
All right, great, thank you. Just reading the rest of the questions here. All right, our next question is, how damaging to the brand are fake reviews of the original seller from third-party sellers?
So, this is a question of kind of how impactful are reviews to an overall product's success and sales velocity. And I mean, there's no direct statistics around the effect of a hurtful review or anything that comes from a third party, but the reviews are weighted the same, whether it comes from a third party purchase or from a vendor purchase. It doesn't matter where that inventory comes from. So I would say that it's extremely important to ensure that the third parties that are selling your products are, selling the right product, selling the right, or providing the right packaging. If there are expiration dates, ensuring that the product is within kind of that time frame that they need it to be, and making sure that they're selling the exact same product that you're selling. The last thing you want to do is have a confusing consumer experience, and then the consumer associate that with the vendor or the brand of that product.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, you mentioned your software. Is it able to automatically correct issues, or what does it do to fix them?
Yeah, so the software that we utilize internally, which we've kind of built based on different pain points that we see within kind of the 3P reseller realm with our clients, it's called MPS Insights. Essentially, what this does is we look at our clients' catalogs on a daily basis and look at all the different ACEs within that catalog, and we try to build software around the idea of identifying discrepancies. So we create content, we have specific price points, we want to own the buy box, all these different things that we want to be held consistent on those pages. A lot of what Jeff talked about today is how third parties can affect that content. They can affect duplicates and variations and things like that. So really the goal with that is for us to be notified as soon as those changes are made. The software that we utilize does not automatically fix those things, because a lot of that is still done through creating cases and going through support kind of the manual way. But really what we're trying to do is make our jobs more efficient, more effective for the brands that we work with, and identifying, where those opportunities are.
All right, it looks like that's everything we have for today. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope everyone got the information they needed from this webinar. And just a reminder, this will be sent out as an email follow-up. If you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact Jeff, Sam, or I. Thank you so much for coming, and have a great rest of your day.